Hello everyone and welcome back to my channel. My name is Nada and today I want to talk about the phenomenon that is BookTok. Now, I'm really interested in reading trends, reading communities. I started this YouTube channel as a BookTube channel. I've always been a book nerd at my heart. But this particular video was inspired by a recent trip that I took to Barnes & Noble with one of my best friends. We were just walking around the store, perusing, seeing if there was anything that we were interested in picking up. And we passed a table called #BookTok Recommends. And on it was a bunch of books that I had seen people talking about everywhere, like in my real life, but also online, that I had no idea had originally started or gained traction because of BookTok. I have to be honest, there was a while there where I was really afraid that reading was going to fall completely out of fashion to the point that we wouldn't even be printing books anymore. Honestly, I know it's very like doomsday to jump to that conclusion immediately, but it was a thought that was on my mind. I mean, we live in this world where we have all of these other things that can occupy our time, you know, social media, TV, movies, YouTube, you know, all of these visual mediums where we can kind of literally download stories into our brains without putting in as much work as we might put in when we read a book. You don't have to imagine what a character looks like when you're watching a movie. You watch the movie and they tell you what the character looks like because the actor is playing them. But it's heartening to see the way that this technology that had the power to completely put the publishing industry out of business, the internet, is taking it and finding a way to revitalize it. So I wanted to make this video to dive into the community that is BookTok and understand why it is appealing, why it works, how it has revitalized the publishing industry, but also what are some potential drawbacks or like negatives that I have noticed about the popularity of BookTok. So if that's something that you're interested in watching, stay tuned. If you want to see more videos from me about books, movies, TV shows, clothes, literally whatever I want to talk about, subscribe to this YouTube channel. Give this video a thumbs up if you also care about BookTok. And yeah, I'll probably say this at the end again, but don't hesitate to leave a comment down below with your thoughts about BookTok, book communities, the online reading community, because I'm really interested in having a conversation with people about this. So let's get into the video, because I'm really interested in having conversations with people about this. Okay, so from the beginning, let's talk about BookTok. What is it? It's essentially an online community of readers based on the app TikTok that discuss books. Feels fairly self-explanatory, doesn't it? The twist here is that it is a community of readers that is reading. So what is BookTok? It's basically TikTok's community of readers who are reviewing and recommending books in 3 minutes or less. And it's been rapidly growing in popularity over the past year, since the pandemic started, since about early 2020. According to the Telegraph newspaper, which is a daily newspaper in England, the BookTok hashtag has had over 34.7 million views, and I read somewhere that BookTok videos in general have upwards of 9.6 billion views at this point. So you can see that it's really quite a large community of people, quite a widespread community of people. People who make videos on BookTok tend to be younger women. Honestly, the people who are trending and growing big on the platform, as with most people on TikTok, honestly, have tended to be younger white women. And they tend to be recommending books mostly by female authors, white female authors, usually. Not always, but usually. The Guardian, The Telegraph, and the Bookseller.org have all called this boom of BookTok the biggest resurgence in reading since the Harry Potter craze of the late 1990s and early 2000s. And something that I've noticed is that books that I heard a lot about in high school because of BookTube, like The Seven Husbands of Evelyn Hugo by Taylor Jenkins Reid, honestly anything by Taylor Jenkins Reid, The Song of Achilles by Madeline Miller, Ends with Us by Colleen Hoover. Books like that are experiencing a big resurgence in purchasing and distribution because of their popularity on BookTok. Even classics like James Joyce's Ulysses, which if you are my friend and I ever tell you that I am reading Ulysses, call the police because I've been taken hostage. Like, I'm not doing it. But the girls on BookTok are, okay? That has also received a resurgence because people on TikTok have been talking a lot about it. It's essentially the newest way that the youths are creating community around books and reading, a la BookTube, which was really popular when I was in high school, Bookstagram, which I really only heard about when I was in college, like undergrad, and Book Twitter. I know that Book Twitter is a big thing as well. So it's just another way that young people are creating community around reading. And it's pretty influential. There's a lot of articles out there with large heavy hitters in the publishing industry are crediting BookTok with bringing young people back to reading. So much so that publishing houses have TikTok accounts where they follow the trends that these young people are creating and create content of their own that thus is fed back into the BookTok mill. One of the big things about BookTok is that it's having this great positive impact on the publishing industry. You know, I feel like for my entire life, there's been discourse about how publishing is dying, the publishing industry is dying, physical books are going to be out of fashion within my lifetime. And while I think that still might be true, I really like the way that people on the internet are always able to find community and make community around books, able to make reading cool again for different generations. Just anecdotally, this isn't like research, this isn't like proper research or anything, but every bookstore I've been into for a while has had a hashtag BookTok recommends, or BookTok is talking about, or buy this because of BookTok table, or they're sending me emails about books that are really popping off on BookTok, or I go on my library app to check out an audiobook and I see every book in the top 5 on there is very popular on BookTok right now. Like, it is very influential in the publishing industry in a way that I think I didn't really anticipate. When I sat down to script and research this video, I was interested in why BookTok is gaining the traction it's gaining. If you read the title, I feel as though BookTok has kind of stolen BookTube's crown in being the most influential social media force in publishing, and that's not me being or gatekeepy or anything. I think it's just an interesting observation, the way that TikTok has taken over every aspect of life. You know, you can find a TikTok about literally anything. If you're interested in chopping down trees yourself and chainsawing sculptures out of them, there's probably somebody on TikTok who is doing that and who's going to explain to you how to do that. I was really interested in how and why TikTok book content is affecting the publishing world the way that it is. And in my research, what I found is mostly that it seems to be because it's a visual medium. It's finding a way of combining like TV and movies and reading to sell books to young people. Images are really compelling, especially to people who are a part of Gen Z and younger. We have grown up with everything being images all the time. Like I said earlier, we grew up with TV, we grew up with the internet, with online video, sharing videos. The camera phone was made within our lifetime. There's a lot of people who are living today who have never known a life without camera phones. Images kind of rule the day with Gen Z. And one of the things that I found interesting in an article that I read, I think it was on The Guardian, is that, and these two sisters who I think they live in England, they have a TikTok account called A Life of Literature. They were talking about how BookTok is about selling books to their friends based off of aesthetics. One of them didn't want to read anymore when she was, one of them didn't want to read anymore, and then she found BookTok at the beginning of quarantine, and she was like, oh wait, reading is pretty cool, and she like put down her video games, you know. They talk about telling their friends why they should read certain books and not really getting through to them until they were able to show them in a short video format with like aesthetic clips and cool stock images and like pictures of people frolicking on the beach why they should read those books. It's really interesting to me that it wasn't until the visual component was added in that their friends suddenly became much more interested in reading with them. And I think it's interesting because I feel like maybe people have forgotten that when you read books, you can like make the pictures in your head. Like you don't have to have somebody make an aesthetic trailer for a book to tell you how to imagine the book. Like part of the enjoyment, at least for me, is I can read a book and imagine whoever I want to imagine is the main character, however I want to imagine the place that they are living in looks. Like that's part of the fun. And maybe if you are somebody who is drawn to reading a book because of an aesthetic trailer that you see on TikTok, you still do that imagining part, but it's just that like the trailer takes away the hurdle of you having to like get into it mentally. Like it gives you images to start with that you can then take and make your own and run with as you continue to read the book. I think TikTok has taken BookTube's place in a way because any video on YouTube, a lot of the time isn't necessarily about the visuals as much as it is about the words that are being said. I shouldn't say any video on YouTube. I know that there's a lot of videos that are like very aesthetic and purposefully aesthetic. We had that whole like travel vlogger aesthetic drone shot phase in 2017, 2018. But I mean like book specific content. When you're talking about books, a lot of the time I've found that I can put a BookTube video on in the background and go about my day and not look at the screen and just listen to what the speaker is saying and still have a complete understanding of what is being said. You can almost kind of watch these videos or listen to them like podcasts, you know. Somebody is just holding up a book and then talking about it for a long time, as opposed to on BookTok where it really is all about the visual medium. I think that's why sad books like A Little Life by Hanya Yanagihara, I hope I said her name right, or They Both Die at the End by Adam Silvera really thrive on BookTok, is because it adds an extra layer of visual interest to your review of the book. You can film yourself literally sobbing on your bed as you finish this book, as opposed to a book like The Kiss Quotient. When I finished it, I was like, cute. That's not gonna make a good TikTok, you know, that's not compelling. But if I was sitting on my bed ugly crying and mascara running down my face, yeah, I probably would click on that video if I was scrolling past it on the Discover page on TikTok too. With sad books, you can display your reaction to them, you know, sobbing, tearing your hair out, throwing the book across the room visually in a way that you can't with a happy book or a book that you don't really care about, a book that doesn't get you in the feels quite the same way. But I also find that BookTok is retreading a lot of, I was literally thinking the word train when the train whistle went off. Oh my god. I love being psychic. I feel like BookTok is treading a lot of the same ground that BookTube treaded years ago. I said at the beginning of this, books, this is why I was so surprised when I walked into the Barnes & Noble and I saw that hashtag BookTok recommends table, because I was like, half of the books on this table are things that people on BookTube were screaming about when I was in high school. I bought the Song of Achilles when I was a senior in high school in 2016 because people on BookTube were talking about it all the time. Oh yeah, my best friend read A Little Life by Hanya Yanagihara when we were in high school because people on BookTube and Bookstagram were talking about it all the time. The Court of Thorns and Roses series that everyone on BookTube and Bookstagram is obsessed with is really popping off on BookTok right now. It's interesting to me the way that they kind of are treading the same ground, I guess, because these are the kids who were like, oh God, in elementary school when I was in high school. And now that they're at the age to read those books, they're reading them and discovering them and sharing them with their friends. And the visual medium of TikTok is really what is making these books pop off all over again. I cannot wait for BookTok to discover Aristotle and Dante, discover the secrets of the universe, because that might be the thing that gets me to make my first video on BookTok. Aristotle and Dante and I'll Give You the Sun by Jandy Nelson. Masterpieces. Like, excellent books. I honestly think I'll Give You the Sun is the best book. Like, it's literally my favorite book of all time. I'm surprised that they haven't discovered that yet, but maybe I will join just so that I can shout from the rooftops all about it. I don't know how effective I would be on BookTok though, because like I said earlier, you know, the girls with melanin don't really get picked up in the algorithm like that, if you know what I mean. I also feel like reading is kind of trending right now. This might be because of my particular algorithms. Like I said, I'm a ready ass bitch. Like, if you look around this room, there are piles of books everywhere because I don't have enough bookshelf space to put my books. But I've seen a lot more content from people who I wouldn't expect to be doing book reviews and to be talking about books. I know this, these beauty gurus like Sean XO and this one girl named Shania, I think her name is Makeup by Shania on Instagram and Twitter. They have both been posting book reviews and talking about books that they've been reading. From my messy bedroom as I edit this video, but I just kind of felt like some of the examples that I had were a little outdated. I filmed this longer ago than I would like to share, so I've done some like digging since to like talk more about how I feel like reading is really trending right now, and I just wanted to put in some like screenshots and examples of influencers who like previously didn't really talk about reading all that much, and then in the past year, 2 years since quarantine started and BookTok started to be really popular, have been talking about it more. So one of them is Alicia Marie. I noticed she started doing like book hauls and talking about books that she really likes reading, and they have been ones that I have seen on TikTok. I remember she had like a Colleen Hoover book in the thumbnail of one of her videos. And then Haley Pham also has been talking a lot more about books and reading. And I also remember that Miss Remy Ashton, who is Alicia Marie's bestie, she's spoken frequently about how she doesn't like reading. She's not a reader. And she posted on her story a few days from when I'm filming this little clip, a few days before today, her trying to read a book that was TikTok popular, The Hating Game by Sally Thorne. And people like Ava Jules do this. Like, all of those lifestyle girls are really getting into the like book side of the internet. And even Ava Jules' thumbnail is like, this quarantine changed me. Like, she's talking about books now because of quarantine. I saw Drake post a little Instagram story about the books that he's been reading right now, and a lot of them were books that are super popular on TikTok. And the YouTuber Angelica Oles has always had, she has like a drama slash commentary channel, but also a beauty channel slash lifestyle channel, and she's always had this really like cute aesthetic bookshelf in the background of her videos. And people for years have been like, post the bookshelf tour, post the bookshelf tour, we want to know about the bookshelf tour. And she finally posted it this year, and I feel like that's partially because books and reading are trending up and will be trending up for the foreseeable future. These people could be people who have read their entire lives, they just never really talked about it. But like, I feel like I've noticed like in the lifestyle space, reading fiction was never a part of the lifestyle, like that girl thing. it was always like self-help books and self-improvement books and like non-fiction stuff like that about like how to girl boss better, basically. But they've been talking a lot more about fiction recently. Say like I'm interested to see who the next big like influencer celebrity girlina who is talking a lot about reading online is going to be. Like, I know Emma Chamberlain was talking about how East of Eden by John Steinbeck is her favorite book of all time, which to me feels like a conservative dog whistle, but we don't have to get into that. But I'm like, who's next? You know, is Hailey Bieber going to come out with her 2022 book list? Is Maya Hawke going to be like photographed walking around with the book that she's reading at the time? You know, I just feel like reading has not been like a super mainstream hobby or activity until recently. And that's why these celebrities and influencers talking about reading feels so intriguing. I'll say feels very intriguing to me because it feels like it's on trend now and they're doing it when it's on trend. But she wasn't with us shooting in the gym. Okay, I'm done. And it's not to be gatekeepy or anything, but I had just never heard them talk about books before, and I feel like reading is regaining a popularity now that it hasn't had in the past 15 years, really. I think because of in the past 15 years, really, since the last Harry Potter book came out. I always marvel at the way that social media is used not to connect people to one another, but to take the work of marketing out of the hands of the stakeholders in whatever industry and put it in the hands of regular people like you and me. Like, once again, social media creators are doing the work of marketing product way better than any marketing team could. And that's not because marketing teams don't know what they're doing or they don't understand trends or they're out of touch. It's just because, think about it, like, what is more appealing? A real teen's reaction and experience-based visual trailer of a novel that they loved, that they are able to produce in 20 minutes on TikTok. Honestly, I don't understand how people be making videos on TikTok in under 3.5 days, because I've tried to and I can't get it. Or some older marketing executive's idea about what will draw teens into a book. I've seen a lot of book trailers in my life. If you've ever watched like Nick at Night, oh god, am I dating myself? Ugh. If you've ever watched Nick at Night, like, you've probably seen the book trailer for a James Patterson book or something, and they're not very appealing. I did not want to read Maximum Ride, specifically because of those weird book trailers of people sprouting wings and flying off into the sky. But you know what I did read that involved humans being angels? The Mortal Instruments series. Is that the one by Cassandra Clare? I think so. I read that, and that's about people being angels. I don't know if they have wings in that because I never finished the series, but I read it because BookTube told me to. But I think just like any social media platform, social media community, there are positives and negatives, or like drawbacks to BookTok's popularity. An obvious positive that I've mentioned 1,000 times in this video is that it's making reading cool again. I'm noticing, like I said earlier, I'm noticing more book content being made, more people talking about reading, and all of that, like being able to build community with people online about something that you're interested in, contributes to you being even more interested in it. And I wonder how many people who are super into reading right now because of BookTok would never have gotten into it if they hadn't found that community online. And how many people who are super into reading now because of BookTok are going to now become lifelong readers who, if we have a planet in 20 years, teach their kids how to be lifelong readers, and, you know, just pass down these really important and interesting titles to younger generations. So I feel like that's a big that's like the biggest positive of BookTok, but I also think that they're like one of the main drawbacks, and I saw this in Swell Entertainment's video, The Cult of BookTok. She was talking about how it often tends to miscategorize books severely. Like, people will just fully use words that mean one thing and then apply them to something that is not that thing that the word means. And it's a little bit mystifying to watch. Like, I think TikTok has that issue in general. I don't even want to get started on the race discourse on TikTok. I cannot even begin. The things that I have seen people talk about on there as like critical race theory, I'm like, what are you saying? Like, do you know what you're saying? I saw this one woman say that she's afraid that if she wasn't attractive, she'd be hate crimed more often. And I was like, what? I don't mean to be like rude or dismissive, and that's why I didn't comment under the video directly, because the comments were full of people who were like really understanding what she was saying, but I did not get. I was like, you think you don't get hate crimes because you're attractive? Attractive to whom? How are you defining attractive? Are you saying it's because white people find you attractive? Like, what? We have already gotten. I just think that TikTok tends to have a way of miscategorizing things. Like, for example, I've harped on about this in several videos, but I read The X-Hex by, I don't know what her name is. I can't remember. Erin Sterling. I hope that's it. Because I thought it would be about like witchy, sexy fun. And it was witchy, and there was sex in it, but it wasn't that fun. And there was like randomly a feminism moral at the end of that book that like nobody had told me about before. Granted, I did not know that I was reading this book because of BookTok. Yeah, so it kind of has this tendency of like categorizing books as like smutty when they're not, or enemies to lovers as categorizing books as like smutty when they're not, or saying that something is like a, what was the word that they used to use on fanfiction.net? Oh my god, what was the word? Oh, saying that something is slash fiction when it's like two guys hold hands once. That's the whole like slash element of the story, you know? So I think that is one of the main drawbacks of BookTok. And another one that I would say is again, like the rehashing of BookTube discourse. That's not necessarily that dire of a drawback, because people find things at their own age, you know. The people who are reading and loving Sarah J. Maas's books or Saba Tahir's books or like the Shatter Me series. I don't know who wrote that, but I know that that's a series that I heard a lot about on BookTube a few years ago. The people who are really enjoying those books right now would not have been able to read them, or it wouldn't have been age appropriate for them to read them when they were popping off on BookTube. But I think the biggest drawback for BookTok is the lack of diversity in the books being recommended, in the top creators, just in general. I said at the top of this video, the creators who are big on the platform tend to be white, women, younger, and they tend to be recommending books by and for young white women. And you know, that is a byproduct of their life experience, what they would be interested in based off of their life experience. But I also have seen a lot of videos of white creators or non-Black POC creators or even Black creators. It's just like recommending books across racial lines or across community lines that are not necessarily good books, but books that they are recommending as a way of educating yourself about a different community. It gets to feel a little bit like box checky or kind of like phoned in. I've seen a lot of people recommending books about police brutality and racism and just these like kind of horrifically sad books about what it is to be Black and to be a Black person in America, or recommending a book like Homegoing by Yaa Gyasi because it'll teach you about, or yeah, just like this idea of literature by people of color, women of color, functioning as a way of teaching people who do not fall in whatever group is being spoken about in the book what the experience of the people who are in that group is. And this can even apply for like, if, for example, if I saw somebody recommend Pachinko so that we could learn what it was like to be a Korean person in the 20th century. Like, I don't think that that is a reason necessarily to wait to read a book. It is a reason to read a book. It's a noble reason to want to read a book, but plays into the same othering that is the root of those books and those authors and creators from those communities not being popular on that social media website. It's this idea that these books only exist for your education because they are about people that nobody understands. I don't want to read Pachinko because I feel like I need to learn about Korean people. I want to read Pachinko because I think that it is a compelling narrative that is set in Korea. Pachinko is set in Japan. The book is set in Japan. Nada, it's about Korean people who moved to Japan. Just...
You either die a hero or you live long enough to see yourself become the villain.
Like, that's just a fact about it. It's not an attribute that adds to it. And it's the same way that, like, I'm not reading Beach Read or People We Meet on Vacation by Emily Henry because I want to learn about wealthy white people who have nothing better to do than lay around and complain about their lives. That was kind of a read. I did not mean for that to come out as rude as it did. I've not read either of those books, but like, that's the idea, you know? It's like imagine I recommend, like, I came up with a list of reading recommendations. It's like The Great Gatsby, Beach Read, Pride and Prejudice, The Line of Beauty by Alan Hollinghurst, and I was like, read these books to learn about the white experience in the West. No. Literature about communities that you're not a part of does not have to be educational to you for it to have merit. You also don't have to come to it from a place of wanting or needing education as the only reason that you would read it. And I think that's why it's so important for there to be more creators of color on BookTok, because they're going to recommend you books about their communities that aren't them thinking, how can I teach a group of people that don't understand me about me? It's just them saying, hey, I read this book and I saw myself in it, and I think that other people will want to read this book. So those are some like observations, musings, thoughts about BookTok and how it has made reading cool again. Let me know any of your thoughts, feelings, agreements, disagreements in the comments down below. I'm, again, really interested to hear what other people have to say about this topic. I think it's fascinating the way that social media, especially, I just think it's fascinating the way that TikTok has kind of taken over all of social media. And like the only videos that you see on YouTube Shorts and a lot of the time on Instagram Reels is just like reposted TikToks. There's reposted TikToks on Twitter, like things that I didn't even know started on TikTok. I just think it's a really interesting, maybe sinister. I don't know if it's sinister. I don't think it's necessarily sinister, but I think it's a really interesting app. That's all I have to say for today. Thank you so much for watching this video. If you liked it, please give it a thumbs up. And like I said at the beginning, if you want more content from me about books, TV, movies, really anything that I feel like talking about, don't hesitate to subscribe to this channel. I don't have an upload schedule. I'm just putting out videos when I feel like it, when the wind blows. It's called the Lauryn Hill experience. So if that's something that you're into, I'd like to see you here again. But until next time, stay off TikTok. Stop scrolling for so long. I've fallen into the trap too. Scrolling until 3 o'clock in the morning just because you can, but you don't need to. You have work in the morning. Go to sleep.